At best, the alien abduction phenomenon is a terrifying, traumatic experience. At its worst, well, we think they sometimes take people and don't put them back.
I lost my mother and brother to this trauma. He murdered her, then killed himself.
These women are being used as human incubators, with all their children stolen away into the night.
A 6-foot-tall entity of blue-white light paralyzed me, then bent down and said into my ear, "Hi, Steve." It knew my name.
We hear gruesome stories of experiments and dissections. Imagine dying on a metal table while paralyzed, surrounded by alien faces. It's a real horror story. Good evening, everyone. Welcome again to our new show on Gnostic TV called Abductions 101, UFOs and the Paranormal Connection. I'm your host, Leslie Shaw. This is Stephen Shaw.
Hello.
We're the authors of the UFO book, Who They Are and What They're Up To. Every episode of our show, we're going to tell one of our personal experiences before we introduce our fabulous guest for the evening. Tonight is Rob Callie from the Typical Skeptic podcast. So generally, these UFO and abduction incidents in Stephen's family tended to come in clusters. And this one set of cluster events there were 5 of them. So we'll give you the first 3 tonight, and the next episode we'll finish up with that. So the first one you said, Stephen, was your father experienced?
Yes, this happened in 1979 in Woodland Hills, California. I was 18. My dad and I were cabinet makers. Anyway, at breakfast time, my father came to breakfast and said, "You know, Steve, my closet doors opened and closed on me last night." And I just thought, oh, well, it was a dream.
You mean by themselves, right?
Yeah, by themselves, yes. He had nothing to do with that. So the next night, I was studying Tai Chi Chuan at the time, and I was reading a lot of Paramahansa Yogananda's work, and I gave my dad this little booklet for him to read. I said, "Dad, you probably enjoy this." And so I gave that to him at 9 o'clock at night, and then about half an hour later, he came into my room with a puzzled look on his face and said, "Stephen, I'm hearing a silver bell in the wall by the fireplace." So I got up and, like a son, I said, "Okay, Dad." And sure enough, there was this ding, ding, ding sound that was coming from inside the wall by the fireplace. My dad and I were cabinet makers. He was the master, I was the apprentice, and I was been a musician most of my life, so I knew what a silver bell sounded like. So we decided to get my sister, who was 13 at the time, and as she came into the room, she said, "Where's that bell coming from?" And sure enough, she heard it too, and we looked at the flue of the chimney. We banged on the wall, talked to ourselves, tried to make sense of it, and went on for a good 10 minutes, and then it just stopped. Now, my family at that time, because we were builders, we were building a house up in Sonora, California, in the foothills of the Sierras, about 350 miles away from where we were living in Woodland Hills. So we would always call my mom and my brother in the morning before he went to school. And my mom said, "Jeffrey," my dad, said, "Jeffrey, the weirdest thing happened last night. I heard this bell ringing, and I picked up the phone, and there was this baritone male's voice on the other end saying, 'I am the invisible Ambichi.'" Now, for a little bit of backtrack here, we had this supposed family spirit guide called O'Glegley that had been with the family bloodline for about 4 generations that I know of. And so I asked my brother, I said, "Philip, did the phone ring last night?" He said, "No, I didn't hear the phone ring, but Mom did pick up the phone and she was trying to have a conversation with somebody." So that was very strange. 2 different homes, 5 people separated by 350 miles at the exact same time. Now, shall I go on for the third?
Absolutely.
Okay.
The third was the next night in his bed. And this is where it gets physical and very interesting.
This is where it actually starts to get interesting. I mean, people have seen UFOs, but I've actually had direct, physical encounters. Okay, so again, it was the next night, and I was sleeping in the bunk bed on the bottom of the bunk bed, and I was awakened in the middle of the night by this whoosh, whoosh, whoosh just like a fan that was trying to go on. And I turned over and I looked down the hallway because there's a little light on in the kitchen, so I could look down the hallway, and there was like nothing. I thought maybe it's a bug or a fan. Anyway, so I went to go back into bed, and I was, trying to go to sleep, and then my bed was pushed 2 gentle shoves from the base of the bed. And growing up in Southern California and having gone through earthquakes, I initially just assumed that it was like a mini quake, just to try to ignore it, right? And so as I'm trying to get to sleep again, then 2 more shoves, a little more vigorous this time. And at this point, I'm getting a little concerned, but I'm trying to ignore it. And then 2 much stronger shoves. And at this point, I think, is somebody playing a joke on me? And then I get 3 taps, like an index finger, going tap, tap, tap.
Show them on my shoulder exactly
on
where.
The middle of the deltoids. Okay. All right. So just unmistakable. And so I'm like nervous and like a little ticked off at this point. So I rolled over quickly and I said, "What?" And I see this shimmery form that's in front of me. And I'm looking, trying to clear my eyes because I wasn't asleep, but and then I just blacked out. Okay, and I told my dad and my sister about that in the morning at breakfast time, and had no idea what to make of it. And I will conclude there for now.
Yes, what we discovered that this thing where people see something strange or experience something strange and then immediately black out, and there's a big chunk of missing time. We've discovered with our research that this is the signature of the alien abduction phenomenon, and quite common. It's the case. So that concludes our story for today of our personal experience, and we'll get ready to welcome our guest.
Yes.
Well, everyone, I'd like to introduce our guest for this evening, Robert Colley. Do you prefer Rob?
Rob's fine. Yeah.
Okay. Rob is a popular podcaster on YouTube and Rumble and other platforms. The Typical Skeptic podcast is a non-biased exploration of ufology, secret space, and hidden history. Robert has an extensive experience with looking into the paranormal, UFO phenomena, hidden history, and the nature of reality. He also does research about conspiracy topics such as uncovering the cabal and the Illuminati. Fascinating. Thank you so much for being here tonight.
Yeah, thanks for having me. You guys are awesome. I loved having you guys on my show, and I'm happy to do this. Really, it's awesome.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, we've been on twice. Yeah, it's been great.
I believe so, yeah. So I wanted to ask how you got started in your interest in the paranormal. Did you have a paranormal experience of your own?
Well, kind of. So, yeah, but it's kind of a long answer, but I guess we have an hour. So,
Yep.
So how it all really started was I was kind of interested in the paranormal. But I hadn't known it yet. So back when I'm 44 now. When I was 21, I was a big fan of the Art Bell show, Coast to Coast AM, and I didn't know what it was because this was like before like the internet was big, and like before Coast to Coast started really putting their shows on the radio, and Art Bell would be on the radio here in Pittsburgh at night, like in the middle of the night, like 1 a.m., 2 a.m. And I had a girlfriend I used to drive home, and then I would hear it on, and I would like, I automatically became fascinated with all the topics that he would talk about, like UFOs and the paranormal and cryptids and I just, and then I feel like I might have had an old hag experience myself. I know I did when I was young, but I kind of put that off to the side. And then, life happened, and, but then in 2015, I had a reawakening to when I was researching a topic. I was always into like history, and I was looking into Alexander the Great. And what came up on my search was this story about the Anunnaki, but, which was like, from Matthew LaCroix. It was a video called The Battle of the Eagle and the Serpent about, Enki and Enlil and, supposedly these Anunnaki stories. And like, I was blown away that like something could be, different. And then that started taking me down all kinds of rabbit holes. And I started researching everything. And then in 2020, when the pandemic hit, I didn't have a lot to do because I lost my job. So I started interviewing people, and then it kind of just took off. And then in 2023, I officially quit my job, and I decided I was going to start doing podcasting full time. And from January 2023 until now, I've been doing it, full time. I've found ways to monetize myself, and but to answer your question, have I had a paranormal experience? I actually have, and it's been more recent than ever. I don't know what it is. I have friends who are energy healers, and I have friends who are paranormal researchers and people who can do amazing stuff. And but so what happened was, like, I was having like entities in here in my studio. When I'd be sleeping at night, there'd be like an entity and like touching me. It first started happening when my ex-girlfriend was here, and then I didn't think anything of it. Then it started getting like worse, and then I had someone clear it out of here, and then recently it came back, and it feels like these entities are like portaling up from underground, which kind of ties into you guys' theory, because it feels like these entities are like portaling up from somewhere, okay, and then they feed off your energy, which is insane, to think that, like, and I never actually saw anything. I can just feel their energy because I'm energy sensitive, so I'm able to like sense when something's not right. I can sense when something's like feeding off my energy. And then I've had issues with my liver recently, so like it seems like they would attack that spot. I've had people. I have my friend Priscilla. She's like a dream walker, I call her. She's actually like a really experienced astral walker, and she's very powerful. I would say she's almost like a white witch, but not anything evil. She's just really like magical. I told her what was going on, and sometimes she'll stay up to like 2 o'clock, 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning when this stuff's happening, and she'll go into like the astral realm, and she'll do things to like I guess she's like getting rid of these entities. It's crazy to think that all this stuff exists, but I mean, on some other dimensional level, or some other reality, or and that's one thing about me. One thing I say is, I say I'm non-biased and I'm open-minded, because I don't have any of the answers. I don't claim to have any of the answers. I just claim to. I usually, on my podcast, I just let people put the information out there, and I let them tell a story, and but I don't know exactly what's going on. I don't know. I just know some things, but I don't claim to know. I'm not saying it's complete, if that makes any sense. I don't know. I don't know if that was
it makes a lot of sense. There's definitely a link between the psychic world and the alien abduction phenomenon. It seems to me that and it was proven by Luis Elizondo recently, that he released this information that when they did MRIs on abductees,
and
that
people with ESP and remote viewers and
they have
such as that.
The same kind of brains as people who have ESP. So there, this thing I knew all along, that there was this connection, has finally been medically proven.
It's in his book Imminent. In fact, he devotes 6 pages to how he was trained to become a remote viewer. And one thing they found too, like say with the PET scans and the MRIs, is that people that have these enhanced abilities, they have what's called the parahippocampal gyrus, which is more active and larger in people that have these abilities. It's like being able to tune into more than one radio station. So it's literally you're tuning into more, some people call it realities. I just think that you're just more receptive. And they also found too that things such as telepathy is actually more basic to humans than people realize. And of course, astral projection is something that we also can do.
So, and our last guest, she was talking about how she would be visited by this demonic creature that definitely was sucking the energy out of her. They're not just preying on our physical forms. I think they're like you were saying. I think they're also preying on our energetic forms. Yeah, our energetic bodies too.
I think that's how some of these entities like exist in other realms. Like if there are reptilians, I'm not saying there are, but if there are, that's probably what they're doing, and that's what these. And then there could be a link to demonic entities and what we think of as reptilians. And then also, I was thinking, because like, you know, like the amazing UFO researcher James Bartley, who you guys should have on your show. This is a little bit wild, but he said like there's actually accounts of women that say they've been actually not just abducted but raped by reptilians, and then this ties into your theory. Like for the next 24 hours, their kundalini's off the charts. Like, you know, for whatever reason, they get some kind of psychic reaction to it. You know, I heard him say that when he was on Coast to Coast. Like, he's been on my show, but I heard him on Coast to Coast recently, and he said that, and I was like, wow, that's really interesting. You know, I don't know what.
We can maybe coax him on.
Yeah, I remember Art Bell until he stopped, until he died. Basically, I think it was. He was broadcasting out of Pahrump, and he was talking a lot toward the end about what he called the quickening that was happening, and he was
really. He was out of Pahrump, Nevada.
Yes, he was.
No kidding, I didn't know that.
He was actually worried about it.
I want to go there. Yeah, I want to go there. What do you think about the quickening, though? I think time is definitely speeding up. I think it's weird, right? Like it's like days, weekends, months are flying by, and I don't know.
They very much so do. In fact, I think he had Val Valerian on a few times in his early days, and Val also talked a lot about the quickening. Literally, like it does seem like, you know, of course, like when you're younger, like, you know, the summer seems to like go by. Well, you know, school tends to go by slowly, but the summer seems to go by too quickly. And
is it perception, or is there really something accelerating?
Yeah,
you know,
Deepak Chopra, he would talk about that too. So if you're having a very engaging conversation with a person, it seems like 6 hours will go by in an instant.
It flies.
But if you're really bored with something, it just seems like time just goes on forever.
Yeah, like if you got a boring job and you're watching that clock go tick.
It's so much perception. That's what makes time such an interesting thing, you know.
But I don't know about the quickening, but I do know that there seems to be an acceleration in orb and UFO activity very recently. Seems like the internet is just blowing up with new stuff that's been spotted lately.
Yeah, in fact, Elizondo and his wife started to be visited by orbs after he learned how to remote view.
Yeah,
and it's interesting.
There's a lot of crazy stuff going on. There was actually a huge like car-sized drone over Trump's house, supposedly in Bedminster, New Jersey. And then I did a show with a couple UFO researchers the other day. They have pretty good, followings, Ryushin and Indigo Angel, and they were saying that I mean, like, no, I think that nobody really has any answers as to what's going on. I mean, it's. I know I watched Richard Dolan. I like Richard Dolan. I feel like he's a credible researcher, and he said that these one thing is that these drones are like really evasive. They're really fast, and they're being spotted over military facilities. They've been spotted over nuclear facilities. And then I said to my friend, I said, what's up with these drones? Do you think they're Chinese? And he said, well, the Chinese still all are intellectual property. He's like, so, maybe we have the same thing, but we're just not flaunting it, or it is ours and we're testing out we're testing out what we have, or, it's alien drones. Maybe these aliens have their own drones that they send out, and, I wish I had an answer,
Well, we always look at what's, basically the KISS method, keep it simple, stupid. And also to the, what is the most logical answer usually is, like, Occam's razor. Like, Gideon's, Gordian's knot, was basically cut, it said, I can't untie this, so I'll just basically cut it through with a sword, right?
Uh-huh.
So it's the means, so it's the means, opportunity, and method. We know for a fact that the Foo Fighters started showing up mid World War II, and neither side, none of them knew. They all thought we thought it was the Japanese or the Germans, and vice versa. So obviously, with our theory about the people being basically our cousins that basically have cities and
underground,
basically split from us 12,850 years ago. And, of course, they would get concerned because this is their home, too. And for your audience, that we've detonated over 2,000 nuclear detonations since 1945. So it's like, when we look at it from the standpoint of that, it's not like going way off into, like, Arcturus and that kind of stuff. It's like, what is the motivation for them being so concerned about our nukes?
And the these orbs that people are seeing, I think they were well described in that congressional hearing by Ryan Graves, the pilot Ryan Graves.
Yeah.
He said they're 15 feet in diameter, they're clear glass, and they have this black cube inside. And when they hover, this black cube spins, and that's why these drones in the sky always have this little flickering appearance. And I looked it up, and there 52% of sightings are these orbs, I think. And obviously they're too small to be a manned craft. So unless the aliens are 1 foot tall or something.
I got a question for you guys. So do you, I know you guys feel like things are coming from underground, and that makes a lot of sense. Like I really like that theory, but I was wondering, do you believe that things could be coming interdimensionally as well? Like, and I'm not just talking about UFOs, but I'm talking about, like there's ghosts that exist in other dimensions, demons, other entities, cryptids, Bigfoot, Dogman, shadow people, a lot of the stuff that like a lot of people talked about. Do you guys believe in that, or do you feel like there's a logical explanation for that?
Well, we look at the evidence, and we certainly have found that they use interdimensional means to.
They use portal travel.
Travel. Seems like for sure.
They're able to open up portals and step through them and take people through them. And this might be interdimensional travel, for all we know. And we do know that there are ghosts. I personally have seen a full body apparition in 1976 on Catalina Island. But are ghosts always our departed loved ones that are just stuck in this plane? And ghosts tend to be locked to a location,
right?
Whereas the abduction phenomenon or the alien harassment phenomenon seems to be
it's not limited.
It has no limits like that.
Yeah,
I agree 100%. It's strange, I still have people that email me, because I have a bigger following. I have people that email me a lot and tell me they're being bothered or they're being abducted, and like they don't know what to do, and it's still definitely an epidemic, I would say.
I know. And what can you do except maybe make one thing I tell people is, if you don't want this kind of attention, double check your body for those little tracking devices they put in people, and get
I had something really interesting to tell you guys. Yeah. I had Daryl Sims on my show, the alien hunter, and he believes that he has a little bit different theory. He believes that these entities are all he believes that these entities are like from fallen angels. He feels like the fallen angels made, he says, where do you get the DNA for a mantis, a reptilian, and a Nordic alien? He said all that DNA comes from Earth. He said so they come from Earth, but then he said, but he thinks they're from fallen angels. But one thing he mentioned was, he's been doing abduction research for a long time, and he would be a great guest for your show too. You guys should really. Yeah. But he said that people are taking what he started doing was he figured this out. He would have someone run a blacklight over an abductee 24 hours after they were abducted, right? And he said a lot of times, or most times, they would find this fluorescence that would show up on the abductee, and he said you can't wash it off. He said usually when someone finds it, they would go run to the sink and try to scrub it off like a rape victim, but he said this is really real, and it usually dissolves in the skin within 24 hours. So you have to kind of catch it right away. And supposedly this is the alien, I guess you would call it sweat or something that's coming out of something's being emitted from their pores that can go on the human skin. A lot of times he said, when you have these women who have hybrid babies, they'll put the aliens will have them hold the hybrid baby over their shoulder, right? Like this, like you would hold a baby. And then usually you'll find the fluorescence on the woman right here. But he said also what's interesting is, and I'm not trying to get grotesque, but you'll find this interesting. They found this fluorescence all over abductees. They found it, in their private parts too. So it's I thought you guys would find that really interesting.
With aliens, yes.
Yeah.
Well, no, when they do these hybrid, things, like they'll take eggs from women, to surgically, or they'll take semen from men surgically. They'll put some kind of device or something, you know. And David Jacobs
what the
says,
alien
you know,
probe was, you know.
I had one in my right shoulder that when I was on your show, I'm sure I talked about the tap on my right shoulder, and then the coins were magnetized. And my dad
that's
and I
another
both,
physical
you know, right.
physical response Stephen
Yeah.
had was one of these aliens opened a portal in his living room, stepped through it, and as the portal opened, the light from the other wherever he was coming from spilled all into the room.
Yeah, the whole room was
my God.
intense blue-white light. This is 1979.
And so we surmise he was taken, and wherever he was taken, somehow he was exposed to a very powerful electromagnetic field of some kind, because when he came back, about 6 hours after the incident, he pulled the coins out of his pocket to go buy some lunch, and all of the coins were stuck together. They had become magnetized. Yeah. And they could pick the coins up with each other.
What actually happened was, it was 5:30 in the morning. I woke up. I looked at my piano. Being a musician, I think about what I was going to play. It was dark, but a little bit of light was on. But I looked at my piano. Then I heard the little fountain in the other room. So I was awake. I wasn't in any type of sleep paralysis, and I was sleeping on the sofa in the living room because I literally was afraid to sleep in my own bedroom because of what had happened the night before. My dad and I were living together with my sister. My dad was the master cabinet maker and I was the apprentice, but we were working together. So anyways, I had gone to sleep in my work clothes from the day before. So I was awake, and then this entity, this tall, 6.5 foot tall entity, skinny, kind of knew that I was awake and literally came through the front door, and that was behind my head, about 25 feet behind. But
he didn't open the door and walk through it. But we just think the portal opened there.
It just floated walk. It floated walk, and with it came the entire room was filled with this intense blue-white light. And it traveled the distance in about maybe 2 seconds, stopped by my right side, and then my whole right side of my body, just like a knife went down. It just went numb. I mean, I couldn't move.
Wow.
My right eye was open, but I couldn't close it if I wanted to. And here, because I'd known since the age of 3 that we had this family protector spirit guide called O'Glegley. So here I am thinking at the age of 18 that I'm going to meet O'Glegley, that other people in the family had met. You know, from going from Germany to England to California, right? And so the other half of me is thinking, dude, you can't move. You're powerless, right? And so this entity, it bent down to me and said into my right ear, and again, I want to be specific, it said into my right ear, not into my brain, telepathy. Said, "Hi, Steve," just kind of in a whisper.
Knew his name.
And I couldn't tell whether it was male or female. And I'm straining to look at his head, and I can tell its form. I can't quite see the face, but again, it was tall, white, blue-white, and skinny. And that lasted for maybe 5 seconds, and then it just unbent, and then basically just went back out through whatever door it opened, and just basically left. And then I lost consciousness.
Then he blacks out again.
Now, for continuity, 6 hours later, my dad and I, being workmen, we were getting hungry for lunch. So I just said, I'll go down and get some lunch for us. And I just reached into my right-hand side pocket, and I had some coins and some bills in there. And I put the coins down on the table, and all the coins were magnetic. There were a couple nails there, too, 6-penny nails. But I could pick up the coins by the edge, by the face, with each other. My dad could do the same thing, too. This is 6 hours after the incident, and we did not know what to make of it.
So I wish we'd had a black light to put up and down and to find out where.
But I grew up in a family that had this paranormal stuff that had happened throughout like 4 generations, so we just chalked it up to another
thing. Another weird thing.
It's
that's amazing though. You were able to experience that. That it sounds like you had an encounter with a tall white. And what's interesting about that is, I've had this guy's name's Ryan Musgrave Evans on my show. He wrote a book called Finding the Crypto-Terrestrials, and I guess crypto-terrestrial means kind of like from Earth as well. And he believes these tall whites are from Earth, and he says, he said some really interesting stuff about them. He said they'll use a lot of our garbage. Like, he said when people have been on these like tall white ships or whatever supposedly they are, like they'll have like like human shower curtains, and like like you mentioned a piano, they'll have like a human piano, or they'll have like a human door. Like they have this supposedly in their craft. Like they're
No kidding, they're
he's
taking
a
some of our
fascinating
refuse.
He's from Australia.
This entity, O'Glegley, is the same entity that approached my brother, except this time the entity in 1982
He looked like a tall gray.
Was exactly a tall gray, 6.5 foot tall, and also the one that saved my uncle's life in Ceylon was also a tall dark figure. Same thing.
So I wanted to ask you, Rob. There was a famous incident in Pennsylvania called the Kecksburg incident. I was wondering if you had ever researched that particular incident.
I have a cool story about that. So I got to meet the guy who has done a lot of research on it. So there's a guy, he's from my state. His name's, I think you guys will find this interesting. His name's Stan Gordon. Okay. And he's been researching UFOs since 1969 or before that, because I think he's like 80 something years old now, but he researched the Kecksburg incident. And then I'm also friends with the guy. He's part of my Pittsburgh UFO group, because I go to a Pittsburgh UFO group. His name's Fred Saluga, and he's with MUFON, and he kind of battles Stan. They kind of battle back and forth here in Pennsylvania about what happened with the Kecksburg incident, whether it was a German Nazi bell, or whether it was the U.S. military, or whether it was something alien. Like Stan thinks it was something alien, and then Fred thinks that it was something with the military. And they there's a Butler Paracon that happens every year here, and they've kind of went at each other. But I'm kind of friends with both of them because I respect both. They're both like older guys in the industry, and I really respect them for their work. Like for example, like Stan, he's had a UFO hotline since 1969. So he there's a place that's really active here. I think you guys will find this really interesting as well. It's called the Chestnut Ridge, and it goes up from like Pennsylvania to West Virginia, and it's like one of these paranormal hotspots that people talk about, like the Bridgewater Triangle or the Alaska Triangle or the Bermuda Triangle. That's what the Chestnut Ridge is. It's a place where they see a lot of Bigfoot, UFOs, cryptids, and things are kind of either coming from another dimension, or they're like you said, they're from Earth and they're accessing portals to like portal into our dimension or something like that. I don't know why
just
underground
these things, to our homes. You know what I mean? Or just from underground.
Possibly,
Yes.
But like, what's interesting is like, so Stan tells this story about this huge UFO that was hovering over a house, and there was two Bigfoots on the fence line. So these hunters, they encountered them, and they fired tracer bullets at them. And he said the Bigfoot just kind of put out its hand, and it made a noise, and it just disappeared. And the UFO just disappeared like that. And then he has a similar story. A woman was on Pennsylvania was heard something on her back porch one night. She heard this is at the time when people saved cans. Remember, everybody used to save cans and recycle them. Well, she could hear something mess around with the pop cans on her back porch. We say pop here in Pennsylvania. It's soda, but. Yeah, that's old school, right? But so anyway, so she goes outside and she sees this huge Bigfoot, and again she fires something into it, and it just disappears. So how these things can just disappear? I agree with you. Maybe they could be coming from underground, but I think they have ways that they're able to, I don't know, either cloak themselves or disappear or go to another dimension or something like that. I'm open to it.
For sure.
I'm really open to it.
Yeah, in our theory that they do have a 12,850 year head start on us. They didn't lose their technology, so just from the mere fact that they have, for instance, we're like toying around now with 6G and with AI and with different things like that, CRISPR technology. Just imagine us with just even a few hundred years. Obviously, they can do things that we can't even think of right now.
Yeah, it's definitely an order of magnitude ahead of our technology.
I agree.
I was listening to Bob Lazar talk about it, and he was saying that on their craft they have these gravity canceling or gravity.
They create a gravity well.
Yeah, they're able to create a gravity field in front of the ship, there's like 3 of these emitters, and one of them faces straight down, and so the ship can rise up. And then these other 2 emitters face forward, and it creates like a gravity bubble that they're able to fall into, and that's why they're able to achieve these incredible speeds without a sonic boom or without feeling the inertia.
Yeah, it cancels inertia.
So that's beyond, that's not Russia or China, or us. That's an order of magnitude ahead of ours.
I agree 100%. It's that they have something, and I agree with you guys that they could have been surviving all this time underground while there were resets on Earth, because it seems like there are a lot of examples of times where the Earth was reset. Do you guys ever? I like to get into conspiracy theories. Do you guys ever get into those theories of like the mud floods? And then I've had Howdy Mikowski on my show. He talks about the World's Fairs, about how they kind of might have used the World's Fairs to kind of like shape the opinion of people in a way that where they would project Native people and other types of people in a derogatory way to kind of, because I guess like at the time, like these people the only people that would go to the World's Fairs were people that were either teachers or professors or someone that could afford it. Right. So this is just a theory,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well,
and basically this ties into this reset of like these mud floods and these constant resets that Earth's had to go through. And then whatever, like the controllers of this reality or the people who are, the puppet masters are shaping the way that we think about things. They're influencing us so we think a certain way. Do you guys like get into that stuff at all?
Yeah, as an example, I'll give you one that Stalin used during World War II. He needed resources, and Stalin started portraying the big farm owners that had a lot of the power at the time, that were basically anti-Stalin, started portraying them as being pigs and dehumanizing them. And that's what turned the populace, basically, again, resetting the people's viewpoint of, for nefarious reasons. So this type of stuff has gone on, and we do it ourselves.
And I think the Akashic record is being broadcast on a kind of a frequency that people with some sort of psychic abilities can pick up. And I think it's broadcasts knowledge that they want us to have
24/7.
And that's why you'll get these simultaneous inventions all around the world at the same time.
Yeah, right, Leslie. There's a really cool book out there about, it's called like 200 simultaneous inventions that changed the world. Like, for instance, Tesla and Marconi came up with the idea for radio almost at the same time.
Yeah.
And Tesla came up with the idea for alternating current while he was walking in a park, kind of daydreaming, and it just came to him. The thing is, like even with alternating current, you could have like maybe 1,000 people pick up on the same thing at the same time, but if they're in Australia and they're Aborigines, or they don't have the scientific background, they say, well, that was really interesting, but they have no idea what it means.
Right, like 1,000 people might pick up on it, but only a few would have the scientific wherewithal to do something with the knowledge.
Yeah, it's happened so many times.
Yeah, they also said the Nazis did this to like the Jewish people in World War III. They kind of used like propaganda to shape people's opinion about the way they thought about the Jews. And then what's interesting is people feel like that the Nazis have survived World War II, and I know there was like evidence that a lot of Nazis went to like Argentina, but they think Hitler might have escaped. I don't know if you guys follow this, but like a lot of people think that the Nazis went to Antarctica. They started this place called Base 211, which is also called New Schwabenland. And then Dan Willis, he gets into it even further, where he feels like that this Fourth Reich has kind of infiltrated our media. And that's why they had this thing called, Dan Willis calls it Valkenschworen. I can't pronounce it in German, but it basically means worldview warfare, where they basically wanted to infect the United States from the inside out. And that's kind of what you see like with the decay of society today. I'm not blaming it completely on that, but that's Dan Willis's theory. And I can't prove it. Yeah.
Whenever you see someone trying to dehumanize a group of other humans,
right,
that's a red flag for trouble ahead.
Calling them rats
Yeah.
or vermins or
calling them
pig.
pigs or rats or
Yeah, dehumanizing is never a good sign. Also, burning books is never a good sign.
yeah, it's like right out of Mein Kampf, the
exactly.
dehumanization of a group of people.
What we do know about Hitler, that he had a close association with Mussolini, and there's this famous true story about how there was a UFO that crashed sometime in the mid-30s.
In the Italian Alps.
Right,
yes.
and then it was right after that Hitler started having his weird fascination. He was also involved with the Thule Society and also with psychics like Madame Blavatsky, okay? So, but he started taking a lot of resources down to Antarctica.
Yeah, at first it was his U-boats in the late 30s were combing the Queen Maudland coast up and down. Mm-hmm. And then one of the U-boat captains was quoted in the media saying, "I have found a paradise under the ice for mein Führer and mein homeland," or something like that. And then it was shortly after that Hitler started sending all these resources to Antarctica.
Yeah.
And whether he escaped there or not, it certainly is possible. And the whole Operation High Jump, Admiral Byrd, after the war, the U.S. intelligence surmised that there was a Nazi base under the ice sheet, and sent Admiral Byrd down there with this military armada.
It was a huge armada at the time.
Yeah, like
it was big.
I forget how many ships. I think it was 13 ships and a
lot of aircraft.
And it was a carrier group, so it had airplanes as well. And when they got there, they were actually attacked by flying saucers. And we get this information from a Soviet intelligence report that was made into a Soviet documentary that aired on Russian television in, I believe, '86. It's all over YouTube, though, if people want to see it.
I saw that on Robert Zephyr's channel.
Yeah.
Do you guys watch Robert Zephyr? Do you know who he is?
No, but we saw that documentary, and I think I've heard about it from, I think Ancient Aliens talked about it at one point, and that's when I looked it up,
Yeah. Yeah, Robert Zephyr's amazing. He talks about a lot of this stuff. He's an anthropologist, but he has amazing content. He talks about a lot about this stuff. Like, but what I was going to say was, it seems like the Nazis were also involved with the Vril Society and Maria Orsich, and she was supposedly channeling something. Like, she was channeling messages from somewhere she thought was Aldebaran. Like, this can't be proven. But she was definitely. They feel like she was channeling messages from somewhere, from some kind of species or something. Like, that was. But then they say that some people say that she went away from the Nazi party because she didn't feel it was right, But I'd love to know if these Germans exist still, and they're kind of running the show behind the scenes or whatever,
Their philosophy certainly still exists.
Yeah.
The white supremacy, that certainly is still there. But like I say, I have the philosophy myself. Like, if I keep going down rabbit holes, eventually I'm going to break an ankle. I'm going to I'm going to break an ankle going down a rabbit hole. So
you're going to meet a rabbit too.
I know for a fact what I know and what I've experienced and family history and what we've researched. I always trying to dovetail things with scientific fact. Like, we know there was a genetic bottleneck about 13,000 years ago that coincides with the comet impact. Now we know these facts. We know that there was a mass extinction that occurred at that time. We know about the mammoths in Siberia and the fruit trees that were literally flash frozen.
And we have
in
so
place.
many. We have
so
so
we
many.
know that.
We have so many stories too about people retreating underground.
Yeah, that too. Yeah.
The Tuatha De Danann, the Druids, I can't think of them all right now, but there's like the Zohar text talks about it, and the
what's
the Indian
Darren Kuyu.
What's the Indian text again?
The Mahabharata.
Thank you. I think that one talks about 7 levels underground that are occupied by intelligences.
Right.
So we have.
I'd love to go underground and see what it's like. I'd love to see
Yeah.
what's going on underneath there. It's I guarantee you there's something a lot more than what we know. It's fascinating to me. Like I
Yeah.
can't even imagine to think about what's underground. And I wonder a lot of times if the leaders, the rulers, like have their plan set in case a cataclysm comes, they can just go right underground. Whereas like us civilians, we have to kind of tough it out up here.
Yeah.
We have to stay on the
Yeah.
surface and die in droves.
The haves and the have-nots. Well,
Right.
we know as a really quick example that New Zealand is apparently a really popular spot for billionaires to be building their underground fortresses. And so if they're doing that in New Zealand, which is kind of far away, do they know something that we don't know?
Yeah.
Why are they doing this? I mean, I used to be a cave explorer, and I tell you that it's climate controlled, even just a couple hundred feet underneath the ground. It's like a nice 56, 58 year round. Okay?
I'm kind of wondering if they're thinking about the trying to escape whether Apophis might actually hit. Apophis is this large asteroid that's supposed to come really close to us in 2029, I believe, and so close that it'll be inside between Earth and its some of its satellites, which is really close.
Yeah, that's not good for our satellite communications.
Yeah, so we're wondering if maybe they know something we don't know, and we're in trouble.
And we get these major solar flares that happen like almost every 11 years. These solar storms that happen every about 11 years. And there was one major one that happened in the 1860s that took out all the the basic telecommunications that we had at the time in America. We just had the basic, the beginnings
like
of
the Morse code.
Yeah,
thing,
so it was a huge solar flare. So you can imagine a huge solar flare hitting our satellites at any particular given time. It would basically make us blind for a period of time and take out our transformers. And that's a serious thing. We don't have enough transformers to go around to say, oh, we'll just change them out. There's a shortage. And it would basically make us blind for a couple of years. So.
I agree 100%. And they say there's these CMEs, what are they, coronal mass ejections that happen,
Yeah.
It's definitely something to worry about. I try not to think about it too much because I feel like if I put the intent that out there, that then it's more likely to happen. But because I feel like somehow we're in some kind of matrix, and I feel like you can do a lot in this reality. You can to change the subject, but I feel like we can manipulate our reality. Like I feel like we have a lot of things we can do that we can, we can manifest things. I've proven this. Witches do spells where they can manipulate reality with consciousness. Psychics are able to manipulate consciousness. There's people that can do cloud busting. People can bend spoons. People can move things with their mind. So I think the world's a lot more malleable than we think. So I feel like a lot of times if we put things out there, it can be more likely to happen. I know we have to worry about things too, but I try to think like if we can have a large effect. I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. And I know you guys already know this because I know you guys research a lot of stuff, but so what happened was when that first hurricane hit this year and it destroyed everything. It was horrible, and I feel so bad for those people in North Carolina. But then, so that kind of got all the people in the community up in arms because a lot of people started talking about weather manipulation, and people were starting to think like, what's going on here? Well, when the second hurricane was about to hit, which was, I can't remember the name, the one that was hitting Florida. On my channel, we had a meditation where I had Sean Bond on and we tried to, lessen the effects of the storm. And then, but it wasn't just my channel. There was like 20 channels, and we didn't do this in tandem. Nobody thought to do this together. It was just everybody was doing, and some people were doing either heal the weather, lessen the storm effects, wipe out the hurricane. And at the end of the day, the hurricane went from a category 5 to a category 2. You know what I mean? So was it all these channels that put their intention out there that changed this, or was it the natural weather? I'll never know, but I would like to think that we have an effect on our reality. I don't know though for sure. Well, I'm open to it though.
When we were studying with a teacher. We were studying Kundalini raising practices, deep meditation and chanting and vibrating the chakras, and also learning how to astral project. One of the things they taught us, they said, when your heart chakra is wide open, you are more likely to be able to affect reality just with thought. You're closer to what they called Christ consciousness, where the closer you become to Christ with your heart chakra wide open and, loving everything, that's when thought can actually start to affect reality more. And they actually warned us to marshal our thoughts while in that state so that we didn't create a reality that we didn't want, say. You know what I mean? So I think we do. I think to a certain extent we do have the power to modify reality just with thought. And when you get a bunch of people together doing it for altruistic reasons, like, caring about their fellow man, I can see where that would be in that kind of position where that would make the most effect on reality.
Oh, a real quick thing I wanted to mention. You talked about people getting together. Let's say practitioners of body harmony or massage therapists or people that are balancing thought with emotion, like the Chinese talk about. You're supposed to feel with your brain and think with your heart. So what they frequently, when they do these deep meditations, they'll end up with these white powders on their bodies. And they turn out to be what are called monoatomic earth elements, which is also found around the sarcophagus in the King's Chamber in Egypt.
In the Great Pyramid,
These monoatomic, and it's basically manifested as part of the human experience when they're focused together in a group, frequently in a group. So this stuff does happen. Like, if you want to do something in your life, you write down a list on the refrigerator, and you say, I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to do that. You're going to have a much better chance of actually doing that, which makes a huge change in people's lives. If they have a direction that's focused both with emotion and with logic.
And love.
And love, right. Now, not
I
just
agree,
a hippie
100%.
thing, so.
Yeah, I agree 100%. It's amazing what we can do, right? It's
we are very powerful beings.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you guys. So you mentioned Admiral Byrd. Do you think Admiral Byrd actually went to Inner Earth too? Because there's two stories of Admiral Byrd. There's one that he encountered the Nazi UFOs, but then there's also was supposedly a diary that he came out with where he also encountered Inner Earth beings. Do you think there's some validity to that?
Yeah, the Ariani. Yeah,
absolutely. What I think happened was after his armada was attacked by flying saucers that shot down half his aircraft and sank one of his destroyers.
Yeah, they got their butts kicked.
Yeah, I don't think they wanted to go back to Washington and say, I don't know who they were,
Oh, yeah, the Nazis are down there and we couldn't do a thing.
I wouldn't relish that meeting myself. So what I think he did was, Admiral Byrd, I think being the hero he was and the explorer he was and the national hero, he was just adored by the people. I think, and he was a very brave man. We think he got into one of his planes with a small crew and flew over onto the ice sheet and discovered this giant hole that he was able to fly down inside and meet with the master and the Ariani. We do think this meeting took place. And that's a lot of our theory is based on the fact that they claim to be the Ariani. They claim to be living in the underworld. They claim to want to have nothing to do with us surface barbarians and our barbaric wars. So I think they're more evolved psychically and emotionally, and because they were being telepathic. We know they're telepathic. They could communicate telepathically with people. So we think that that's another power that people get when they vibrate all their chakras open. They've become more and more telepathic. So we think it's a human birthright.
It's actually simpler than language, actually.
That we lost, or it has atrophied in us, but has not atrophied because they keep the practice going, the Ariani. And but what concerns me is that they formed an alliance with Hitler. That's not a recommendation for them in general, right? But yes, we
Yeah.
do think it happened for sure, and I think it happened right. And now we know this hole exists.
Yeah, it's been confirmed.
Yeah, this Linda Moulton Howe did this work. She interviewed people who were whistleblowers who were willing to come forward from the military that were
Stationed
down at McMurdo. And this one pilot, first of all, there's this huge no-fly zone in Antarctica. And my question is, why? Why would you care if somebody flew over a giant ice cube, you know?
So there was a medical emergency, right?
Right. There was some medical emergency, though, and this pilot decided to break the no-fly zone. And when he went over this part that no one's supposed to go over, he spotted this giant, he and the crew spotted this enormous hole. They said it's like the size of a football field, that you could certainly fly a small plane down inside of it. So that kind of backs up Bird's story, and also the Anita data backs up Bird's story.
Oh, yeah, the satellite data?
Yeah, they sent up these antenna two different times, and they were called the Anita antenna, and it went up in the sky, and it was actually detecting cosmic rays coming from underneath the ice sheet upward,
Right.
which is not supposed to be possible. And just another indication that there might be a very powerful society down under there, you know?
Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. That's something. Do you think it's like multiple species that exist under there, like the reptilians, like the humans, like the Sasani? Like, what do you think is going on down there? Like, if you had to guess.
We think that they have the ability, certainly, to play with genetics and manipulation, like we play with building blocks. I mean, for instance, the reptilians, instead of like developing scuba gear, why not just develop a race that can do? But plus, also on the fact too, we know that there's a huge underground ocean that we've detected in the past, decade or so. So we know that there's an ocean that's about the size of our oceans on the surface. So,
and we think that they're the source of the cryptids. All of these,
a lot of
these
it, yeah.
weird, dog boys and Mothmans, and all these strange combinations of DNA into.
They're always upright walking bipedal.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we think that, we don't know for sure. I'd love to know for sure, but
Yeah.
it seems to me that the Nordics, or the ones that met with Admiral Byrd and the ones that met with Eisenhower, we think they're kind of in charge, but they utilize genetic manipulation just like we would use any tool. And they're making these hybrid creatures to do their work for them. And at least we think so,
Yeah, the Greys are obviously, if you look at the way they work and the way they act, they're basically like, they almost are almost like drone-like or automaton-like, but they do have the ability to use telepathy, and they are very efficient. And sometimes you'll see them that there will be with Nordic, or with a taller Grey, like the Grey who's called Oglegli. In my case, with my family's case, it seems like the taller Grey, they're the ones that are kind of more in charge over the Greys. They're kind of like an echelon.
And we see them actually working together, which is why I think they're not different species coming from all different parts of the galaxy, right? Sometimes the Greys are on the same ship as the Nordics, or the reptilians are on the same ships with the tall Greys, or somebody spots them on Earth working together. Yeah. So I think that was one of the things that pointed us towards them not being a bunch of different races coming from different star systems.
Plus, they breed with us too. So
yeah.
So, anyways, this is your interview. So
we're talking too much.
We're talking too much.
Well, I find it fascinating. So I just, it's really interesting. But yeah, I mean, whatever you'd like to ask me, I'm all, whatever Yeah.
Just to keep you reminded, it's getting close to the hour, and I know that you had something coming up.
No, we've got like 10 minutes.
No, he said he had something coming up too, right?
Yeah, all right.
I do, but I told him that I would be a couple minutes late because I just scheduled it yesterday. I have Greg Yawakia. He's a Zuni elder. He's going to come on and he's going to show Zuni petroglyphs, and stuff like that. It should be interesting.
Yeah, I can't wait. So, I wanted to ask, though, what you thought about our theory and the the connection I make between the cryptids and the quote unquote aliens, because we don't think they're really aliens.
Yeah, we call them cousins.
Yeah,
but, you know.
you've interviewed a lot of people. What do you think about the
I
connection?
like your theory. I think it's definitely possible. You know, I think maybe there's stuff coming from everywhere. I think a large portion of it could be coming from underground, but I think some things could be interdimensional too. I think interdimensional and underground could be connected. But then I also think that like there's so much stuff out there in the cause. Like someone was telling me that there's like a planet for every star. You know, so there has to be life out there somewhere. Like I don't believe that they're telling us that like there's absolutely no life out there. Like if space is real and it's what they're telling us it is, you know, like there's a lot of people say NASA lies about everything, and you know that's where the flat earthers think that like there's like, you know, land beyond the ice wall supposedly in Antarctica, which I don't disagree with that either. I feel like there could be something to that. But so I'm just kind of open to it, you know, because I have a lot of people say that they've been to on like secret space programs and stuff, and I don't deny them, but I'm thinking, well, where are they going? You know what I mean? Like maybe that's happening in another dimension, you know, like, or maybe there's other dimensions and other realities. That's what I'm starting to come to more and more, that there might be other things going on in other realities or something. I don't know.
Well,
and
like
maybe this world's a lot more complex than we can ever imagine.
Right.
You know.
Yeah. You know, for instance, you know, we've only had, you know, smartphones for a short period of time, and you know, cell phones and those kind of stuff. You know, back when we were kids growing up watching Star Trek, we'd see them using their communicators, right? That was way before we came up with a flip phone,
It's
right?
so funny. It looks
I
just
know,
like
right?
the flip phones. You know?
So if you went back 200 years or 300 years, and somebody has the ability, they have, they have a laptop that can see different parts of the world and different people, they think you were a witch or you were an alien, because we just have, you know, so and then trying to tell people that there are these invisible communication rays that are going through all the time. Now I can pick up stuff on a television screen or different things like that. They would definitely think that you're a witch, because I can't see it, I can't hear it, I can't touch it. Therefore, you must be a witch.
And of course, we know
So-
there's this astral realm.
We know
right?
that for sure.
So is that a parallel dimension right there?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's
And-
definitely different frequency.
And they
It's a
swim.
different-
I think they swim in it just as easily as we walk through our front door. Because whenever Steve would go astral, it seemed like they were there waiting for him. His alien handler, we call him, the O'Glegley character.
Frequently,
you know?
yes.
It seemed like he was always on the other side of the veil, waiting for him to enter so that they could communicate.
It's amazing.
I mean, I can, you know, if I want to, I can astral project. I just have to do a few things a little differently, and it's not that hard. I've been able to do it almost my whole life.
Yeah, it's not.
You know,
hard.
so it's not
Wow.
something that we can all do.
Mm-hmm.
There's a great book out there called The Art of Astral Projection.
Yeah.
If you just do the breathing exercises and the way they tell you to do it, first night that Leslie did it, she went astral.
I know, it's so funny. He gave me this book, and I read chapter 1, right? And I went to bed doing the practices, and I popped out of my body, and I was so surprised, you know, like my eyes were like right up under the cottage cheese ceiling, like I was only 6 inches from the the cottage cheese ceilings that we used to have, and I was so surprised. I went, wow, and immediately slammed back into my body so hard that I kind of jumped in bed.
But she got better at it after that.
Yeah,
Next time she went outside the house and was floating above the house and watching the traffic go by. And
I recommend it. It's fun, you know.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
I'm trying to do it. I haven't been able to do it. I've only been able to get to the body vibrational state, you know, where your body vibrates, and then supposedly you pop out of body from there. I mean, because I read Robert Monroe's Journeys Out of the Body, and then I was using his binaural beats. But like you said, get this book, The Art of Astral Projection. That's a lot better.
Yeah.
And also, the heart chakra is, I think we were taught, was the astral projection chakra.
It's the primary, yes.
So Preparation for a few months, you might want to do the Om chant. The Om chant is the one that focuses on the heart. Yeah, the deep
literally,
Om.
it's like about 400 hertz or something like. It's
Hertz,
basically
yeah,
it's a lot lower. Like the top chakra, the seventh is like E. It's the highest vibration, and then you go down till you get to the root chakra, which is like about 200 cycles, whatever.
Yeah.
But if you can feel like your breastplate going, oh, if you actually feel it vibrating,
yeah, then you're doing it right.
You're doing the right. In fact, there's been studies, it's called cymatics, where they actually take like sand or different things like that, or basically oscilloscopes, right? And they will, the mandala, which is basically a written representation of Om in India and also in China, it's the exact shape of when you actually do the vocalization of Om.
It makes a circle with another circle
with
inside,
the other circle,
yeah.
and then other things. It's the exact representation. So these ancients, these older people that before us, they knew what the actual shape would be, which is really fascinating that science is backing that up now.
And sound is more important than people realize.
Yes, it is.
Too.
It's a lot more important, yeah.
The vibration of opening the chakras.
It's probably how the Egyptians moved the stones.
Yeah.
They use a certain combination of, make the rock light.
We think.
So, yeah.
I love that.
It appears, yeah.
So did you want to, was there anything you'd like to plug before we say goodnight?
Yeah, they could just listen to the Typical Skeptic podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. I mean, I'm on YouTube and I'm on Rumble, but I like to promote my audio podcast because for some reason, like the monetization for audio is a lot better than it is for YouTube or Rumble. So like I like to promote my audio podcast, and it's on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, and then I have merch too. So if they want to buy merch, they can check out my merch store. It's in the links to all my videos. And I just want to say thank you so much. I really enjoyed talking to you guys. It was really awesome. I really appreciate you guys inviting me on your show, and I always love having you on my show. And yeah, I'd have you back anytime.
Thank you so much also the some of those names that you were mentioning. I'll see if they'll be interested in joining us too. That'd be great.
All right.
Yeah, just if you anyone you're interested in, just let me know, and I'll see if I can send you their email. And yeah.